So I'm going to show you some ways that you can help improve your mobility, flexibility in your hamstrings. So one of the ways that we can do this is to use your yoga tune-up ball and come onto a high surface, bar stool, something like that, something pretty firm. I like to take it against a wall so I can kind of lean in and relax a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and take this ball and place it right at that connection point between my hamstring and my glute. And it can be pretty intense, so make sure you control how much pressure is on there. So I can kind of lean on there and lift up a little bit, or maybe lean more against the wall and it will be a little less intense. I can also just not let all of the weight just press down. I can lift up a little bit, but once I have it sort of situated where I want it, I'll start to do some movements with my legs side to side. I can extend and then bend. I can make some circles with my leg, my knee down is making some circles. Again, bend and straighten, and some side to side movements, of course, is another option. And again, this is pretty close to where my hamstring connects to my glute, my rear end. And I'll start to work it down. So now I'm more towards the middle of my hamstring. And I have my other foot on the floor here so I don't fall off. And I have a little bit more control of what I'm doing, but also how much pressure I'm putting on the ball. As I said, this can be pretty intense, so really pay attention. Keep checking in with your breath. Get really intuitive with this. So side to side, what would make sense? Just maybe staying in one place and taking some deep breaths, perhaps. And again, I could certainly just lean up against this wall so I can relax a little bit if that's what serves me best. And again, I'll keep working my way down the leg. So I'm getting a little bit closer to my knee now. I'm going to continue to move side to side, up and down with the legs, circles again, both directions. Maybe I just put some direct pressure again and take some deep breaths. And then I'll get really quite close to the knee now. So right above that knee. So where some of those tissues connect to the actual knee itself, perhaps. And again, if you have any issues with your knee, you might want to check in. If this is too much to be this close to the knee, then back it off, bring it a little higher. It's all connected, so you're still affecting all those tissues, but in a little safer way. If you're not pressing right on perhaps an injured area or an area that's so locked down that it's going to fight you as you try to release. So pay attention as always and deeply breathe. Doing this myofascial release. I might go back to some spots up higher if I felt like I needed a little bit more up higher. And I might find a spot where I just want to stay and take a few breaths. And then we can eventually make our way to side number 2. So up high, right where it connects there into that glute. Again, some side to side movements. Bending and straightening. Some circles with that leg. If it moves away from where I want it, I just move it back. You might find one side tighter than the other, super common. So you might spend, the same amount of time or just slightly less time if one side is not as tight as the other. As stuck, as I like to say. Yeah, just tune in. Do I need to go side to side? Do I just need to stay and some direct pressure on there for a few seconds and take some deep breaths? Maybe then I bend and straighten again. I'll continue to work my way down the leg. As I mentioned, it does work best if you're on a high enough surface that this leg can just kind of dangle. It can work on a lower surface, like a chair or something. You might not have the ability to do some of this swinging and circling stuff, but you could still do some side to side and some bend and straighten. So still do it, even if you don't have a taller bar stool type chair that you can use. Then just a few more breaths on this side. If you need more time, just pause the recording and take as much time as you need. All right, so pause if you need more time, otherwise we're moving on. One more way you can release your hamstrings and your glutes and your calves at the same time is to use two balls, and you'll place them between your hamstring and your calf right at the knee joint. Now for some folks, this is going to be too much pressure on the knees, perhaps. So this one may or may not be for you. Know that your calves are all a part of that chain, so you do want to spend some time releasing the calves. So if this one is just way too much for you, I'll show you another option. But for those of you who are able to do this one, you can start to move a little side to side. And spending a few breaths here, and then eventually start to work your way down. And as you work your way down the calf, it'll go higher onto the hamstring and eventually almost tapping into that glute hamstring connection again that we were doing up there on the chair. Now, if this is absolutely not possible for you with your knees, you could put your balls back inside your tote and release the calves individually. So if you're doing the one where you're squatting down or hunching down with the calf and the hamstring at the same time, continue that one. Otherwise, you might, again, if that didn't work, try just releasing the calf by itself. And this is one way to do that. If that doesn't feel like enough, you could place your balls on top of block. So the calves are all connected up into and through the knee, into that hamstring tissue-wise anyway. And so you know that if you are releasing your calves, you are also assisting in some hamstring flexibility. So again, one or the other, or you can do both. If you want to spend some time doing this one as well as the one where you have the two balls behind your legs, then please do. There's no rush at all. So continue with one or the other, or spend some time doing some of each. At this point, you should probably be pretty close to more like your Achilles tendon which will also then connect very close to where your hamstring and your glutes connect up at the top. Maybe again, a little side to side movement, or you can certainly just stay and take some deep breaths. And maybe you might work your way back up. If there was one particular area that seemed like it needed it a little more, you could revisit that area. And deep breathing. Take your time. Again, pause the video if you need more time. And then we're going to move on. So we released those calves and hamstrings with the balls. Now we're going to stretch them. The combination is very, very effective. So we'll go ahead and take your strap or whatever you're using like a strap. And we'll hook, let's say your right foot first. And then from here, you have the option. You can either keep this bottom left leg or this left leg straight or bent. So you choose. Choose the one that feels best on your lower back. So let's try just a little bend in the knee on the right side. If you start to feel like you're really tipping this way, you probably need to bend the bottom leg. So what I'm saying is if there's this huge lifting up of the tailbone off the ground, maybe give yourself a little more support and bend the bottom left leg. So there is a little bend in my left knee, and then I'm going to point and flex and point and flex my right toes. So I'll feel my calves stretching quite a bit. Tune in if it feels super sharp, if there's any numbness, you may want to do one of two things, either bend the knee more or be careful about the flex position. Don't go so far. So nice and slow, point and flex. And then go ahead and bend your knee quite a bit. So maybe my thigh is even touching my chest now. And then I'm going to move from straight-ish, it may not go all the way straight, to bend. So I straighten and I bend the leg. And again, with your thigh fairly close to your chest, your leg may or may not go all the way straight. And it's fine if it doesn't. The focus is absolutely on the hamstring and calf right now. And you'll notice we're just moving through this range of motion. It's a dynamic movement, a movement with stretching. And then eventually we'll stay here and find a position that's on a scale of 1 to 10, no more than a 7 in terms of intensity. So you should be able to stay here for a while. If it's so intense, again, you can't take a deep breath, please back it off. We're not trying to go to a 10. We're not trying to go maximum. About a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of intensity. And then you might try out, how does it feel to let that bottom leg go out again? Check it out. If that feels okay on the back, you can stay there. Starts to pull on the back. Again, sometimes a little more support is what you need. And my foot isn't flexed or pointed, it's just comfortable. So I was doing pointing and flexing before. It's just comfortable now, just whatever feels natural. And we'll take 3 more breaths. your shoulders also. Carefully don't start tensing the shoulders. All right, so we're going to switch sides. My left foot now is up, and I'll decide if I want my right leg out or bent based on how it feels on my back and maybe how much my rear end is lifting up off the floor. If I feel like I have to really strain to do this with my leg extended, let's start with the knee bent. So left leg now, the knee is a little soft, and we point and we flex, and we point and we flex the toes. Nice and slow. And do check in again if when you flex the toes back, there's sharp pain or numbness. Please don't do such a flex, or maybe don't flex at all. Maybe you just go from a point to more of a neutral, a point to a neutral. Pay attention. I'm not trying to irritate any sciatica issues going on. Sometimes flexing back can irritate the sciatic nerve. Breathing. Soften in the shoulders too. Make sure you don't tense up the neck and shoulders. So bend the left knee a lot, and then begin to move it towards straight. Bend and straight. And remember, it probably won't go all the way straight, especially if you're keeping that thigh pretty close to your chest. And then we'll hold the leg straightish. I say straightish because it does not have to be straight. And I might revisit what does it feel like to let the right leg go out. Maybe it works this time, maybe it doesn't. We're going to stay here now and simply breathe. Again, on a scale of 1 to 10, we're not going for a 10. Maybe a 7. Take some deep breaths. And 5 more breaths. And relax. Awesome. Okay. We'll move on. This next one can be done with weight or without weight. So one way to actually lengthen the hamstrings and create a little more range of motion is to work the hamstrings dynamically. And so we're going to move to a range of motion that feels like a strength exercise, and it is. But when we activate these muscles, believe it or not, they actually get happier and they might actually release for us. Sometimes our muscles lock down because they're weak. And so they feel like they need to lock down to protect us. So one way that we can strengthen and help our hamstrings have more mobility is to work them like a deadlift. And so I'm not going to use a lot of weight, and you could use no weight. And this is very slow. And I'm actually using the wall for some support too, to remind me to stick my butt out And that way I'm going to more likely than not, I'm going to move this a little bit. I'm going to hopefully, plan is to keep it in my hamstrings and out of my back. So I'm walking my feet a little forward. My butt is on the wall and I'm not going to let it come off the wall as I slowly hinge forward and then slowly bring it back up. Now, at no point do I let my back round on this. And that's part of why we have you using the wall for support. So if I keep my butt on the wall and think about my chest staying lifted, I'm more likely than not going to be keeping it in my hamstrings. Now, again, you don't have to use weight for this. You could slide it down and then super slow, bring it back up. So of course we do deadlifts a lot when we're working out and it is a focus on those hamstrings. Sometimes we go heavier than this, but we're really slowing it down here so we can feel the stretch while we move through. Keeping my hamstrings strong will also help them feel safe to be more mobile, more flexible. Again, this can be done with or without weight. When you're doing your deadlifts, just focus on slowing them down. And we do them sometimes with one leg, sometimes with two legs. Same exercise, same focus. Lengthening and strengthening those hamstrings at the same time. All right, so give this a try, see how that goes, and let me know if you have any questions.